Welcome to This Explainer. Today we're unpacking a really wild web of local violence, national protests, and some drastically shifting media narratives. We're going to trace the timeline and look at the source's allegations to figure out exactly how a widely loved educator somehow ended up at the dead center of a massive national firestorm.
To really wrap our heads around this story, the source material points us to a pretty terrifying scene. Picture this. It's the dead of night on June 2nd, 2026 in Patna. Out of nowhere, 15 to 20 people just start hurling stones. In the pitch black, the distinct sound of gunshots echoes out. Now, this wasn't just some random act of vandalism, right? This was the catalyst. A totally chaotic nighttime raid where property was smashed to pieces and live bullets literally rang out in the dark.
And the target of this raid? Well, it wasn't just anyone. It was the coaching center of Khan Sir. We're talking about a beloved educator with a whopping 26 million YouTube subscribers. To put that into perspective, that's like the entire population of a small country tuning into his classes. So this was a highly targeted attack on literally one of the most prominent educational voices in the entire nation.
So let's look at part one, the night of the attack.
The source breaks down the sheer brutality of what went down. Like we said, this was a coordinated assault with over a dozen attackers. And it went way beyond just smashing up some office property and hoardings. A security guard was beaten so severely he ended up hospitalized. Add in the multiple gunshots fired in the dark, and you've got a genuinely terrifying scenario for a place of learning. But here's where the narrative takes a massive, really confusing twist. You gotta ask yourself, how in the world does the victim of a violent attack suddenly become the prime suspect? Because within just a few days of the dust settling, the whole story completely flipped. Which brings us to part two. Victim becomes the accused.
The source highlights this incredibly stark contrast in how the media portrayed him almost overnight. Look at the before picture. Khan Sir was celebrated left and right as this dedicated teacher and social worker, offering super affordable education and even running a hospital with 7 rupee blood tests. Seriously, 7 rupees. But then, right after the attack, boom, segments of the media suddenly start calling him Faisal Khan, branding him an absconding mafia boss and throwing around accusations about illegal land occupation. It's a complete 180.
To stay totally objective here, we have to look at the police report, the FIR, from June 5th, because it presents two totally conflicting stories about that gunfire. On one hand, the Bihar police allege that Khan Sir actually ordered his guards to fire, claiming he basically said, "I'll handle whatever happens." But on the flip side, Khan Sir's defense insists those shots were fired straight up into the air, strictly as self-defense, because they were desperately trying to save a guard who was being beaten to a pulp by the mob.
Now, at first glance, this was all framed as just some bitter local rivalry between coaching centers. But when you see the police charges escalate that fast, along with this really intense media frenzy, the source argues that the localized explanation just doesn't quite add up. It feels like there's a much larger catalyst working behind the scenes. Let's peel back another layer with part 3, the NEET paper leak.
According to the materials, the true scope of this story is staggering. We are talking about over 2.2 million students. These are young people who busted their backs prepping for the highly competitive NEET medical exam, only to wake up and find their entire futures hanging by a thread because the testing materials were compromised.
The momentum of the outrage here built at lightning speed. The nationwide exam happened on May 3rd, but by May 12th, the whole thing was canceled due to massive paper leaks. Naturally, by late May, educators stepped up, launching protests and demanding the education minister step down. The explainer alleges that Khan Sir ended up with a target on his back, specifically because he was one of the absolute loudest voices taking the authorities to task during this whole mess.
And you can see where the educator's fury was coming from. It was pure empathy. As Khan Sir pointed out, roughly 30 to 40% of these kids come from families who literally had to take out loans just for their education. Imagine that. Families are out there mortgaging whatever they have to afford exam prep, so a canceled, corrupted exam is an absolute financial catastrophe for them. That sheer desperation is what poured gasoline on the protests.
And that leads right into part 4, the media retaliation. The source claims that as the teachers got louder, traditional media pushed back hard. This all blew up in a highly viral, super explosive TV debate on May 29th. You had news anchor Anjana Kashyap going head-to-head with the educators, allegedly calling YouTube teachers worthless and claiming they only care about views. The teachers fired right back, accusing the media of running cover for the government's failures. It got so heated that Sir flat out called the anchor a fraud and a traitor of fake news on live television.
Okay, now pay attention to how fast things move after that. The source lays out this incredibly tight timeline. Day 1 is that explosive May 29th debate. Literally 4 days later, on June 2nd, the coaching center gets attacked. By June 5th, the police file an FIR against Sir. And just 2 days after that, on June 7th, that exact same news anchor slaps him with a 20 million rupee defamation suit. The source uses this wild chronology to argue that this wasn't just bad luck, it was coordinated retaliation. Which brings us to our final section, Part 5, Discrediting the Movement.
So the explainer asserts that Sir's nightmare was actually just one piece of a much larger puzzle designed to squash the student protests altogether. We're talking about alleged tactics like the media suddenly pushing Hindu-Muslim divisions to distract everyone from the leaked exams. You had state governments allegedly seizing the properties of other protesting teachers, plus a systematic defamation campaign against student organizers. It really looks like they were making an example out of Sir to terrify everyone else into staying quiet. And the source maps out the anatomy of this alleged sabotage perfectly. It's like a 3-step playbook. Step 1, an outrageous video from a protest goes viral, showing some guy demanding the division of India. Step 2, the media jumps on it instantly, painting the whole student movement as a bunch of anti-national traitors. But then, Step 3, internet sleuths do their thing and actually expose that the guy in the video was a planted secret agent, sent there by a political troll just to ruin the protest's credibility from the inside. Crazy, right? It all boils down to this quote: educate, agitate, organize. The core argument of our source material is that teachers have this really unique, incredible power to organize the masses and give a voice to their frustrations. Because they empower young people to ask the tough questions about a broken system, they're seen as a massive threat to the establishment. And according to the source, that's exactly why they get targeted and defamed.
So, as we wrap up this explainer, the timelines and the allegations we've looked at leave us with one seriously profound question to think about. When a localized violent crime aligns this perfectly with a massive national scandal, where exactly does coincidence end and conspiracy begin? It's a lot to process for sure. Keep asking those questions and keep digging for the